I'm here, Chair. I'm good.
Yeah, at least today you agreed to open your video. Hey,
Yeah.
long time not seeing you. We
Yes.
only talk on the phone.
Yes.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Keep up.
Blanca,
I'm still at the public hearings, Chair, but I'm here.
oh shame.
Yes,
Which province are you?
KZN now.
In KZN. Okay. And how are things going? So far, so good.
We're in KZN.
Okay. Yeah, I see Miss Mabi is joining and Khai is in. Chair, you are upside down.
I've long been here, Chair.
No, you have not long been here. I've been checking. Chairperson, co-chairperson, you're upside down. You're fine now.
Now switch off your TV, Chair.
Oh, sorry. Cindy, do we have a quorum?
I'm checking now, Chair. So far on the NCOP side, we do have a quorum for if we want to adopt anything. On the NA side, I'm just checking to see who is here. So far, I've got 3 members. But we are okay to proceed if we get to 12:15 with this number of members, we can proceed.
Okay.
Chairperson.
Yes, who's that?
Singh here. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you, Honorable C?
I'm good, and you?
Thank you. I'm good.
I'm going to leave you at about 1:05 to join the Standing Committee on the Auditor General from 1:15 until 2:30. I'll come back and join you. Unless we finish that meeting earlier. All right, we got sessions to take there.
Yeah.
All these meetings.
There's also a possibility that we finish earlier this side.
All right, we'll just see how it goes. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for letting us know.
Chairperson Matlango.
Yes, my dear.
It's Mado. How are you, ma'am?
I'm good. How are you, Mado?
I'm good, thanks. Just to let you know that we are taking the meeting live. So if members can switch on their videos when they speak, and where they forgot, please remind them.
Okay, I always do.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, you are requested to keep your videos on. You have heard that.
Oh, good day, good chair. If we open our video, you are going to lose us. I'll stay muted on the video side. How are you, Chair?
I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, I'm also going to leave
good.
it one.
Understandable.
Sure.
Some people are affected by the videos when their videos are on, but for those who can, please keep your videos on. I see Honorable Mabi is also driving, but when you speak, Madam, please just switch on your video. Co-chair, let me call her. Oh.
Do you want me to switch it on or off?
No, on when you speak.
Oh, when we speak, okay, it's fine.
Yeah. The reason I'm saying this is because I see you are in a car. I don't know if you are comfortable because it's a bit shaky. Mado, how is it? Mado?
Thank you, ma'am. I know Honorable Mavi knows how to put it, even if she's got the phone in the car. When she speaks, she will frame properly. Just, Honorable Mavi, just make sure that you don't show the roof of the car. We see more of your face. Thank you.
And the chewing gum, my friend.
Chairperson, it's not
Yes,
fair not fair for them to tell us about cameras now. You know, I didn't go have for a hairdo yet. You can see how much of hair I got, and now they're talking about cameras.
You know your work, it always takes you on the camera, so there's no need for the hairdo. Whichever way you look, you must always be appreciated. What time is it now? 4 minutes to go. Honorable Taiso, how are you?
I'm fine, Chair. How are you?
I hear the voice, I can't see the face.
Oh, it's raining here.
Yeah, it's also raining here in Cape Town.
No, the snow is on its way, especially in the eastern part of the Free State.
Yeah,
are you okay,
I just
Chair?
hope it doesn't. I'm fine. How are you?
No, I'm fine. I'm fine, Chair.
We'll talk about our classes afterwards.
Yes. Now
Okay.
let's talk about our classes.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, they are offline. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, my time says 12:16, moving on to 12:17, I think.
You know, I always argue and differ with Honorable Karim about time. His time is always not the same as mine, but I don't want to be a habit. I will take that.
No,
mine is saying 13 minutes past 12, but there's no harm. We can start with the meeting. Cindy, can you flag the agenda, please? Honorable Khai, you wanted to say something?
No, your time is wrong, Chair.
Well, it can't
I'm
be
telling
wrong.
It is now 12:17. It is now 12:17, Chair.
Yes, mine is saying 13.
No, it's wrong. But change your time.
No, I must consult further to be convinced that is wrong. Anyway, thank you, honorable members and colleagues, the team, finance, good afternoon. You're welcome. Let me also take this opportunity to welcome the team from DPWI, and the acting secretary, is she on the platform, Cindy? I think we have the team that is led by her from Parliament. You are warmly welcome, honorable members, and I think this is a continuation of the meeting that we had last week, Friday. I will rely mostly on you, members and co-chairperson, because I couldn't be part of the meeting last week. You are most welcome, and I declare the meeting officially open. I'll quickly jump to the second item on the agenda, which is the Parliament's budgetary challenges briefing. We are receiving a briefing by National Treasury. I don't know who's leading the team. National Treasury, Team Treasury.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and honorable members. This is Mampo Modise. I will be leading the National Treasury team. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mampo.
Chair, you are muted.
I was asking Cindy to flag your slides so that we can share with the members.
Chairperson, Modise will be sharing the presentation.
Pardon?
Ms. Modise will be sharing the presentation on behalf of Treasury.
Yes, but can you flag her slides, her presentation?
They've sent us a PDF, Chair, so the agreement with Treasury is that Ms. Modise herself will share the presentation.
Okay, can you do that, please, Mampo?
Yes, ma'am, I can definitely do that.
Thank you. You can take over now.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you so much for the invitation. I'm just sharing the slides now. Can the honorable members see the slides?
Not yet.
No.
We can see you, not the slides.
Now?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
thank you so. Sorry, Chair.
You need to do something about it. It's so busy. What do you see from your side?
I see everything. I just need to change my display.
Please, yes.
Settings. Sorry, Chair, just give me a moment.
Go to slideshow.
No. So if I go to slideshow, it will show you what you don't want to see.
What is it that we don't want to see?
The way Chairperson, wait, I'm sorting it out. I promise. Display. I'm just gonna make everything one screen, not two screens.
Yes.
And then I'm going to share again. Is this better, Chairperson?
This is better. I think you can see. Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect.
All right.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Chair. This is Mampo Modise, and part of my team is Mr. Edgar Sishi and Ms. Gillian Wilson, who will be assisting me with the difficult question that the committee is going to have at the end. So basically, our request was just to look at the Parliament budget and to try and explain to members, how we came about this budget and what was the thinking process regarding this budget. Chairperson and honorable members, please allow me to just go through the thinking. I won't take long, but the thinking of how we do the budget and how we come up to the numbers that we come up to. And then after that brief discussion, I will then zoom into Parliament presentation. So basically, chairpersons and honorable members, what we look at when we do the budget, we are guided by the Money Bill Amendment Procedure and Related Matters Act. But basically what this does is that it asks the executive to put together proposals of what we think is the best fiscal position for the state or for government. And then we present that to Parliament, and basically there's different committees that are responsible for different roles in terms of looking at this presentation that we do. So the Minister of Finance basically will present this at the time of the budget, and different committees, as I say, will play a different role. What we have realized, committee members and chairperson, is that we need to work much closer with the portfolio committees and the Standing Committee on Appropriations, so that the information that we provide to the Standing Committee, especially in terms of the spending patterns of the departments, our quarterly report, we should actually start sharing those with the portfolio committees so that they have a good idea of the spending patterns of the different departments. So in terms of looking at the budget, the first step was looking at the fiscal framework, and this was approved by Parliament. And then from there, we look at the division of revenue. Basically, how do we take the government resources and allocate them in the different spheres, which would be national, provincial, and local government. And then thirdly, which is where we are at the appropriation bill phase, where we look at these resources that were allocated at a national level. How do they then be split between the different votes? Basically, what this is just a formal description of what the appropriation bill entails. But basically, honorable members and chairpersons, the main thing is that what goes into the thinking. So in the 2020 MTBPS, which was presented in October, National Treasury or government or the executive through the National Treasury presented a fiscal framework where we're trying to stabilize the debt and reduce the cost of borrowing. And what we did was to present a fiscal framework that basically proposed reductions in the wage bill, reduce non-interest expenditure, especially looking at current expenditure. But what we tried to do was to protect the spending on infrastructure. So capital transfers and other things that are capital intensive, we didn't reduce their budget, but we also allocated funds for the infrastructure funds to try and boost economic growth. And with these measures, we thought we would be putting our country in a more sustainable path. So at the time of the budget 2021, we basically executed these proposals where the fiscal strategy basically is just to make sure that we stabilize our debt, and then we promote economic growth. And also there were quite a lot of resources that were allocated to the public health services to deal with the pandemic. And as I said earlier, we had to look at how do we then improve the composition of spending, where we make sure that most of the spending goes to capital rather than spending going to current expenditure. So honorable members and chairperson, this is just the slide that shows you what we had to do in order to stabilize the debt and make sure that we set our country in a more sustainable path. So the slide here, it basically shows what we thought was going to be the baselines, and that was in 2020 budget vis-a-vis what is in the appropriation bill in 2021. So the difference is basically what was preliminary allocated to the different departments last year vis-a-vis what is now currently allocated in the appropriation bill for this year. So basically, chairperson and honorable members, how you can interpret these numbers is that last year, when we gave an indicative allocation for 2021-22, we said the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation will be allocated 524. But this year, after implementing the proposals to stabilize the fiscal framework, Department of Planning and Monitoring, the proposal in the appropriation bill is now 454. So this means that 70.3 million was removed from the indicative baseline that was given to the department last year. And if you look at the share of reductions to the allocation, basically it's just the 70.3 million divided by the 454. So this shows, it tries to basically standardize the interpretation of this. So it just shows you that relative to the amount that they were supposed to get,
Pardon me,
the reduction.
Mampo, I know your voice is soft, but you are requested us to raise it.
Okay, sorry, Chair. Is this better now?
Yeah, continue.
Thanks, Chair. So basically, the percent reduction to baseline just shows you how much the departments were, or their baselines were reduced by relative to what they were supposed to get. So the department that got the biggest reductions was the Department of Planning and Monitoring, where 15.5% was reduced from their indicative budget. And because today we're focusing on Parliament would be the line that is highlighted or it's in red font. And basically for Parliament, the reductions were 8.7% of what their indicative allocation was at the time of the 2020 budget. But if you look, Chairperson and honorable members, there's other departments where there is significant reductions. If you look at departments such as correctional services, police, and justice and constitutional development, they have seen significant reductions. And this is mainly because, Chair, these departments are compensation heavy. So as I said, we tried to reduce the compensation by making sure that there are no salary increases in the state. So the departments that you see here are departments that are compensation driven, and therefore there will be significant increases in their budget. However, Chairperson, there's other departments where the reductions are not as large as other departments, and this would be there's two groups of departments where we had to look at their service delivery content and look at whether it aligns with the President's plan to boost economic growth. So if you look in this slide, Chairperson and honorable members, you have departments here that are one, economic growth drivers. So departments such as environmental affairs, small businesses, agriculture, those are the departments that are implementing some of the structural reforms that are there to boost economic growth. But you also have departments where they are infrastructure heavy, and I'm looking here at public works, I'm looking at transport, I'm looking at water and sanitation. So those are the departments where we preserved their spending on infrastructure. That's why you can see the reductions are not as large as the departments that are compensation heavy. And Chairperson, we also have departments such as social development where we had to preserve some of these reductions because of the implications that this will have in terms of poverty. So as much as Treasury and the executive was criticized severely for the below inflation increases in social development, but we did really try to preserve some of these reductions from social development to take that into consideration. Then Chairperson and honorable members, there were departments that received funding, and those departments was the Department of Health, and this was for COVID vaccination program, as well as allocations to provinces to deal with the potential third and fourth waves. The National Treasury's budget was increased by 5 billion, and this is for the land bank. But of course, this is still preliminary. We're still discussing this with the Standing Committee on Appropriations, of course, and then depending on what they approve, this amount will be allocated to the National Treasury. And the biggest allocation, Chairperson and honorable members, is in the public enterprises, and this is 31 billion, and this is mainly for ESCOM. So Chairperson, I think in the context of these budget reductions that I've discussed, this slide just gives the implications of these budget reductions for the state as a whole. So basically, the biggest one that we have picked up across the different departments is that the filling of vacant posts and their operational budget will certainly be impacted, but with specifics to peace and security, the different ratios, Chairperson, will be impacted. We're looking at, the recruitment of the young and physically active force will definitely be impacted, looking at the defense review and the inability for the defense force to implement the defense review is also something that we had to take into consideration. Then there's other issues, Chairperson, that will definitely be impacted. Now we're looking at things like international organizations. We're looking at funding for TVETs as well as NSFAs. So there's a lot of implications that we needed to make sure that the Parliament knows with this fiscal consolidation. But I think what is core is that we believe as the executive that if we don't have fiscal consolidation now, then our problems will be much bigger in 2 years to come. So we rather feel the pain now and make sure that 3 years from now, our path is much better, and then we can start looking at more additional funding if the economy improves. So I think the reason why we brought these implications is so that Parliament is given all the different options and implications, so that when they consider what we have submitted, they have a broad view of what the consequences are for each option. So just zooming into Parliament, honorable members, we have had several meetings with Parliament just to discuss some of these implications specifically for Parliament. So these are just the numbers that shows how much these reductions are and the composition of these reductions. So Chairperson and honorable members, in terms of Parliament for this in 2021 and 22, the proposed reductions are about 195.29. And basically, I think without even spending time in looking at the numbers, the main message here is that the compensation of employees was the category that was concentrated at, where we thought if Parliament followed the government decisions to freeze salaries and not have salary increases, they will be able to absorb these budget reductions within their compensation baseline, but also there are reductions in terms of goods and services, and to assist Parliament into dealing with those goods and services reductions. The core there would have been to implement some of the cost containment measures and continue with some of the virtual meetings and reduce transportation costs. So basically, Chairperson, the biggest impact for Parliament on these budget reductions will be the filling of vacant positions, and also how does Parliament then deal with the fact that currently, as things stand, the allocations are less than the headcount. So if you look at the Parliament budget, what is allocated to them for compensation of employees is much less than the warm bodies that they have in Parliament. So we looked at several things that could assist, but most of these will have consequences, of course, but it's something that should be considered. So the first thing is that because there was a 6% salary adjustment for Parliament last year, it basically complicated it made the budget, the gap even larger. So basically, when we were having these discussions with Parliament, what we said much earlier on is that there should be a reconsideration of the 6% salary adjustment. If it was possible, then Parliament should have aligned their salary increases to that of the executive. I know, I mean, Parliament is its own arms of, it's its own arm of state, but in terms of, or in the situation that we are under, it would have been wise, it would have been better for Parliament to have no salary increases, just to reduce the gap. And what has also transpired is that because the reductions were across the board, it would be difficult for Parliament to shift some of the operational budget inputs and services to compensation of employees. But if Parliament can identify some of those savings in that category, then of course Treasury will then have to assist them that they can move the money to deal with the wage bill, pressures. But what is core is that even if there was a 6% increase last year, which increased the gap, what Parliament has to do going forward is to make sure that any salary adjustments are within the baseline that they have. So in terms of the national, or in terms of the executive, we're currently, of course, in the negotiations, but basically the proposal is that for the next 3 years, there will be no salary increases, and mainly because we are trying to make sure that we do consolidate. So Parliament should consider aligning their processes to that of the executive. So another option that Parliament has, and we have been discussing, is the possibility of early retirement. They have been speaking to the DPSA, but because Parliament does not form part of the Public Service Act, then it meant that they will have to do, or they'll have to introduce their own early retirement program. But we're trying to work with Parliament to determine what the liability is or how much it's going to cost, what are the number of people that qualify for this, but also what vis-a-vis the number of people that are interested to take this early retirement. And also we have to find the money. First of all, we're going to have to look at, of course, within the budget of Parliament, but also we will have to see overall whether the money is significant, but also how do we then find money to deal with or to pay the liability. If there's only 2 people who are interested in the early retirement, it's not going to save a lot of money. Therefore, probably we will just use the Parliament budget to deal with that. So it will depend on the magnitude or the quantum of this liability. Another issue that we've picked up that is costing Parliament is the issue of Primate Contributions. And if you just look at this, honorable members, these are just the numbers to show what was budgeted for and what Parliament actually spent on Primate Contributions. And as you see, since 2017-18, there has been an over expenditure on this line item. And Parliament did work with the National Treasury in 2018 already, but we did respond. Minister Nkandla at that time did respond to Parliament, highlighting why the national sphere will not be able to absorb this liability. And we have been working with the team to figure out a much better way to deal with these liabilities. And also basically, how do we, one, ensure that Primate is sustainable and is able to care for its former members like any other medical aid scheme. So the best thing, or what we're considering now, is how do we make sure Primate is sustainable, and also looking at whether we cannot move these liabilities to the different provinces where it should be in provinces and all of that. But I think that is still work in progress that we have to consider. So basically, this is just a slide that gives a detail on how Parliament in the past used to absorb these budget pressures. And basically, because Parliament is its own arm of state, the appropriations that are given to Parliament, they don't have to submit the money back into the National Revenue Fund at the end of the year, but Parliament has used most of these surpluses to deal with the pressures such as the honorariums for the exiting MPs. They had to deal with the continuous budget reductions from the past. They also had to fund Primate shortfalls. So basically, they have used most of the surpluses to try and deal with the budget pressures. And currently, unfortunately, they no longer have the leeway or the surpluses to deal with these spending pressures. So, Chairperson, I think that is the proposals and the summary of the presentation, the implications of the budget reduction for Parliament, and some of the proposals that National Treasury has discussed with Parliament just to try and ease the budget reduction pressures. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mampo. On behalf of Treasury, members, can you please indicate by raise of your hand those that want to engage? I see Honorable Muletsani.
Chair, could you record me as well? I'm trying to raise my hand.
Pardon?
Thank you.
Who's that?
No, Chair, I was trying to raise my hand.
There's somebody who was talking.
It's Singh. I'm
Oh,
trying
Singh.
to raise my
Okay.
hand, yeah, please.
Okay, Honorable Mabi, Honorable Singh. Is that all, Cindy? Do you have any other hand that you see? Okay, Honorable Mletsani.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Let me first start by acknowledging the presentation by the National Treasury. On slide 14, it says that the Parliament will not be able to fill in vacant positions due to budget reductions. I just want to find out to National Treasury that is this not a way of maybe setting the Parliament for failure, or maybe to make it to be redundant? On the slide 15 that follows there, she explained that there is a discussion that is taking place between the Parliament and the National Treasury, whereby they are busy discussing some of the things that they are discussing, determining the liability, number of people eligible versus people interested, going on I don't know on what, but now what I want to find out is that how is the discussion going on, and is there any good progress in the discussion to bear the good fruits at the end? Thank you, Co-Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mletsani. Honorable Khadebe. Dr. Khadebe, you can keep your video off if it's disturbing you.
Yeah, it's definitely disturbing me. Honorable Co-Chairperson, first of all, a person would like to appreciate the presentation from the Treasury. And then I think that as the parliamentarians, we must look objectively to the conditions which we are faced with. You can see that from the presentation we had, there are cuts across the board because of the economic situation we're in. But what is important is that the Parliament is the arm of state, of which for it to execute its duty, it must be able to be properly resourced. I can make a very simple example here, Chair, is that when you compare ourselves to the other parliaments, you find that the MPs themselves are supported big time. You find that a person will have a legal advisor dedicated to him or her, a researcher dedicated to him or her. So what happens here is that if there are further cuts like the one we're seeing, it means the Parliament will be limping from one position to the other position. So the moral of the story here is that one, the cut of Parliament in this budget, you can see that it is 8.7, whereas the contraction of the economy is estimated to be at 7.8. So the question is, why is this cut so deep? I can see the other departments, their cuts, we appreciate that those which are going to roll out infrastructure, the cut was not as deep, but the Parliament must also have fallen on that category, because as an arm of state, Chair, really we need to do our job. If you can go to the Zondo Commission, everyone is complaining that the Parliament was sleeping. But when you look at the work of parliamentarians, really, for how many researchers do we have as the committee? The committee will have only one researcher, one content advisor. How many members are going to be helped by these people? There are so many, whereas compared to, so with this cut to the bone, when is the Treasury go to take Parliament serious? I think that the time has come that the Parliament must be taken serious. When you go to speak about issues like the issue of permit, the issue of permit is killing Parliament itself. You find that it is a close medical aid, but whereas it benefits the few, but who are these few people who are benefiting? You find that these are the judges. I'm not casting aspersions on them. I think that the Parliament is high time now it really resolve this problem once and for all, because really we cannot, because if you can look at the books of Parliament, it is not a going concern, to be honest. So on a plural regard, Chair, I think that I appreciate this, but the other issue shall raise. When you go to this issue of public service itself, there's almost no increment for the public servants. But from the beginning of the slide, it was very clear that the labor and the business was consulted. Why is the labor feeling so aggrieved if they have agreed to that? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Khadebe. Honorable Co-Chairperson, do you want to come now or you can come later?
Let me come after all the members have made their inputs, Chair.
I think that's in order. Honorable Singh?
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and I also want to associate myself in thanking the National Treasury for the presentation. I'm not going to raise anything new, but just to emphasize what my two colleagues, Honorable Moletsane and Honorable Hatebe, have said. And I'm glad that National Treasury recognizes that Parliament is an arm of government, and the independence of Parliament should be recognized in this respect, in as much as the judiciary is recognized and the executive. And Treasury needs to be reminded, which is something that they know, that it is Parliament that has an oversight over their own budget, but all the budgets of all the other departments that fall under them. So if Parliament is not wide awake and capacitated to do that, then Treasury allocations will be wasted. And this is why we get so much of fruitless, wasteful expenditure, disclaimers, etc., etc. And we will be assisting Treasury as Parliament if we are well capacitated. And Honorable Hatebe has mentioned the issue of research and other things. But having said that, we don't expect, Chairperson, Treasury just to give us an unlimited amount, because there isn't that amount available to the fiscus. But the recognition has to be there that we can assist Treasury and the economy and the country by reducing the amount of money that's spent by departments, or by increasing service delivery, by ensuring that there's effective service delivery with the limited funds. Now, Honorable Chairperson, the issue of PARMED is an old story. We've been hearing over and over and over again like a stuck record. But also, Chairperson, you and I are going to retire one day. And we want to also benefit from continuing as PARMED members. But I can't see why we must continue to pay the benefit those members who served in provincial legislatures. I mean, they've got their own budgets. And I know the fiscus is one complete government we're talking about, but let it come off so we can see, as a national parliament, how we can use our funds. Honorable Chairperson, when you look at the amount of money that's allocated to constituency expenses for us as political parties to run offices, it's a meager amount. And yet you get the NGOs writing into Parliament to say, where are the constituency officers? What are they doing? We can hardly use the money to hire officers, let alone put competent secretarial staff in those offices. So all of these things need to be looked at. The role of Parliament is different from the role of any other run-of-the-mill department within government that's providing service delivery. And hope that this thing about PARMED and looking at the salaries, I don't know if the ASTP is listening, and the increases, that we can deal with them sooner rather than later. And Chair, I would like to ask, in case I'm not here, that we have an urgent meeting with the Minister of Finance, as a committee and with our presiding officers, so that he begins to not only understand, because it's good to say he understands, but do something about giving us more money so that we can operate more efficiently. And when I say we, I mean the members of Parliament, both in the NA and the NCOP. But obviously, we will have to do some cost-cutting exercises within the administration of Parliament itself, because yes, we are saving money with not traveling, with virtual, with hybrids, and there are a lot of savings, and we need to capitalize on those savings moving forward. Thank you for the presentation. And I think the next meeting we must be told what is going to be done to increase the budget of Parliament, full stop, for us to be effective. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Singh, and I'm requesting members that are coming after you to entertain what you are putting on the table for the committee to consider. And it needs to be clear mandate as to what is it that we need to do and what is that we want to achieve, by who and by when. Honorable Julius, welcome, and it's your time now.
Thank you, Co-Chairperson. Good day, members. And
thank you.
Thank you, Co-Chairperson. I welcome the presentation, although I think it actually brought nothing new. This could have been a WhatsApp message sent to us. We wanted to know what the challenges are with National Treasury not supporting Parliament financially. The issue of Primate. We know that we actually proposed that provinces must be engaged, but to hear today from National Treasury that provinces must still be engaged, we want to know when. How far is the process? I think that is what we came here for. That is why we called National Treasury for. And National Treasury cannot tell us things that we proposed. We proposed that something must be done. And one of the proposals was that the provinces must be engaged so that they can pay for permits, so that we can reduce our monthly payments on permit. There's nothing said about that. Chairperson, I think if you look at the overall budget, it gives you a clearer understanding now when you see the percentages reductions and where the budget was increased. And a direct question to Treasury, can we say the reason why Parliament cannot get more money and other departments cannot get more money is because we gave an 86 or something % increase to ESCOM? Is it worth? Is it really worth? Could it have been less? And look at the others, because you cannot just decrease and say deal with that, and we will deal with I mean, ESCOM 86%. Can you explain that? Because it's impacting on this budget of Parliament. What was the rationale behind that, giving them 86%? Because clearly it's not the only option. I think there's also a blanket approach in reductions, Chairperson. Because you say cut the wage bill, and you just decrease in every department. Do you know, the Treasury take, make concerted efforts to find out what's the need in Parliament before you made that reductions based on the wage bill? I agree with reducing the wage bill, but a blanket approach might not be in the best interest of Parliament. Chairperson, the issue of Primate, I think we need to do something. But my last one is actually the political party funding. The impact, can Treasury explain to us the impact of political party funding? Because we have a new act that came into effect, I don't know what's the view of Treasury in terms of increasing this. What will happen in this? I didn't hear anything, and yet we asked in our previous meeting that we get a briefing on this too. I think Honorable Singh mentioned it last time. Thank you, Co-Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Julius. Honorable Kaiso. Honorable Kaiso.
Thank you very much, Chair, Honorable Chair. Yeah, we have, one has been lucky to interact with the some major part of the presentation that has been made by Dr. Mampo. I just want to firstly appreciate the presentation, especially around the emphasis that the public enterprise, allocation to rescue the existence of the public enterprises. With that allocation, it would actually, make sure that now the state is able to, to play its developmental role, including what I do hear, what Honorable Julius has said around ESCOM. We don't have a choice there because we can't let the country pause. Remember, the economy of the country largely, or to a greater extent, depends on the functionality of ESCOM or viability of ESCOM. As a result, there would be this necessary intervention because there's nothing that we can do. We cannot just surrender to that situation to an extent that electricity in the country and it's being compromised to an extent that now it doesn't reflect what the economic recovery plan does say. So what is the problem there that needs to be dealt with is how now this management and accountability around the issue of allocation that has been made to ESCOM has been effected, to such that now there's good results that is been seen out of that investment there. So I think it is necessary to consider that because primary to the economic recovery plan, ESCOM, it's also central to that particular, role play. So we cannot have all necessary interventions would be expected to be effected to as such. But what I want to get to is the issue, or maybe to ask to Dr. Mampo on what is the view of Treasury with regard to what is said to be lesser transfer to public entities? What would that mean or imply so that one perhaps can come back later? Because it's also very important to understand that. I may have missed it during when you were presenting it, but I think I need some explanation on that. Yeah, and then, well, of course, we also need to, I think to some extent, we also need to be exemplary when it comes to, issues of increase at the parliamentary level versus the public servants. We need to, Parliament also needs to be exemplary when we talk of, the crisis itself. So I don't know how can I put it, but what I'm saying is that we also at this level of the Parliament, we need to send a very clear message as well when we talk about, a general crisis of the economy. So yeah, I just wanted to reflect that we need to also be exemplary when we talk about that. And then, yeah, I think let me pause at that point, Honorable Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Kaiso. I hope time does allow us to go to second bites. I was in a high speed when I started the meeting. I think I was supposed to indicate that we have received apology from the Deputy Minister, the Minister and the DG, and the Acting Secretary who is in the Executive Committee meeting. She might join us as time goes on. Just to note those apologies. It's 13 hours. So now I will give Honorable Khai.
Thank you very much, Honorable Co-Chair. I got cut while Dr. Mabo was still making presentation. So when I rejoined, it was Honorable Moletsane was asking questions, so I missed out on his questions. Chair, I think, first of all, I also appreciate the report and also appreciate the fact that Treasury is also appreciating the fact that we are an arm of state and therefore we should not be treated like a department. But if you look at the slides that talks to the cards, the heading there is department, and then also parliament is under department. So the Treasury's view is that parliament is a department, which is a wrong view. Parliament is an arm of state. If you look at the three arms of state, you find out of the 900 billion, 2 billion goes to parliament and 1 billion goes to judiciary. In fact, it's not even called judiciary. It's called Office of Justice, Chief Justice. So that you don't see it as a judiciary, you just see it as an office. So that's how it's termed. Nobody can say it's an arm of state, it's just an office that is being allocated. But I think we are also complaining to ourselves at the end of the day, because it is not Treasury that is appropriating funds from the National Revenue Fund. It is Parliament. It is Parliament that passes the fiscal framework. It is Parliament that passes DORA. And it is Parliament that passes the appropriation bill. So it should then be Parliament that tells Treasury how to allocate monies, because it is Parliament that appropriates. So I of the view that we are complaining to ourselves, because it is going to be us who are going to be passing in June the appropriation bill, which is something that we should have actually started with a fiscal framework, as well as a division of revenue. So this is therefore opening our eyes going forward, because even with this 3 years that Treasury is talking about, of wage freeze, there's no guarantee that it's only going to be 3 years. They can come around and say, no, the economy is still in a similar situation, and therefore there will be no increases again for another 3 years. And this will then affect the filling of those vacancies that we talk. In fact, if some of us have heard what the former speaker was saying, that when they visited other countries, they found that one member would have be supported by 10 staff members. Those that I think Honorable Khadebe was also mentioning, the kind of staff that is allocated to members in other countries. So I think Parliament should, I don't think now, even with the discussion, I support the discussion with the National Minister and the Executive Authority of Parliament. Actually, I thought this meeting was around that. If you look at the Z list, it actually says the meeting between the minister, the committee, and the executive authority. So I thought that this meeting that Honorable Singh is referring to, supposed to be this meeting actually that we're having today, so that we're not discussing the cuts, but we're discussing how Parliament should be resourced. Because ideally for me, which should be practical, is to say this is the amount that is going to be allocated to Parliament as an arm of state, and then the rest can then be allocated to departments. Because if you look at that 900 billion, only 3 billion that goes to Parliament and judiciary. Executive is getting 600 billion. So with 2 billion, we're supposed to oversight 600 billion. We don't have that. I mean, with the 2 billion, then we are expected to. That's why we then were criticized, because we only have 2 billion to oversight the executive that is having 600 billion. I mean, even with Treasury, they increase for themselves. They did not cut for themselves. Dr. Mapuse, the 5 billion goes to Land Bank. But even if that 5 billion is not agreed, they still will have that 35 billion, which is also not going to be cut. So they'll still get what they had in 2020. So for them, there's no cut at all, even if there was no increase of that 5 billion, if you look at these figures. So I'm saying, whilst I appreciate the situation of the economy of the country, but also we should not be, you're collapsing the parliament and also its role as defined by parliament. I mean, by the constitution, if then, because the parliament is labor intensive. You know, when you say that the first thing that you must then focus on is a COE, and but also you should cut, not only cut the wage freeze, but also you should not employ more people. So vacancies as well must be freeze. It's not just a question of wage freeze, but also it's a question of a vacancy freeze. So I think that's where the challenge is, honorable members. So I also support the idea of having a further meeting, but the issue should be around this issue of parliament first being given monies that will make it to be able to conduct its mandate. We don't want to go to a situation where other countries are doing, like Ghana and Kenya, where they won't pass a budget until they have their fair share of the budget. We don't want to move to that situation. But if we are forced to go to that situation, we could not pass the budget until we get our fair share. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Khai. Honorable Co-Chairperson, Honorable Mabi.
Thanks, Chair. I think Honorable Khai summarized it quite very well. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
No, I'm saying that Honorable Khai, in fact, summarized the issues that I wanted to raise quite very well. Because listening to the presentation, I don't think it was also speaking to the briefing that we gave to Treasury. I want to just take it further, just to exact one paragraph to be specific as to what was expected from this presentation. We propose that the attention, it should be drawn especially to the briefing of the 21st May at which Parliament Executive Authority are expected to brief the committee on progress made as far as addressing concerns about the allocation of Parliament's budget, open bracket, which I think it's more important. A briefing by the chairperson of Parliament Board on progress made in resolving issues around the Parliament liability, close bracket. So I did not get any sense that the presentation tried to really resolve that. And Chair, maybe let us propose that because the meeting took a turn that was not supposed to have focused on, that maybe we give them time, also taking into consideration of what Member Khai is saying, to say that Parliament, it is the final arbiter on the appropriations of funds. So maybe let's have our separate meetings and find a way of directing Treasury on how we would want this Parliament liability on Parliament's books to be resolved. Maybe we can maybe propose that we defer this agenda item. They go back, rework their presentation, and also at the high level, we try also engage and find consensus, and maybe in the next meeting, the minister and presiding officers should be in this meeting to reach finality on this matter. Thanks, Chair. Chair, can you hear me?
Sorry, I was muted. I'm saying the co-chairperson has come up with a way forward, proposing a way forward as to what should actually happen in terms of our next meeting, the issue of permit, the issue of allocation of budgeting, not more on the cutting, as Honorable Khai and Honorable Singh and Honorable Julius, they've also raised that matter, that to be specific, the speaker and the chairperson of the NCOP to be part of the meeting, so that we get clarity and progress in terms of this matter. And I think Honorable Singh is correct to say that we have been talking about this since I joined this committee. We have been talking about the matter, but it looks like we are not getting anywhere. And I think honorable members, when they say what they're seeing, Team Treasury, it's not like, and also maybe to the public, it's not like we're saying we want more slides to Parliament and compromise the service delivery departments. And some members, when they spoke, they've emphasized on that. We do need service delivery departments to be prioritized and be given more funds. We know local government also is another sphere that is being underfunded. That is the proposal, and I think it has been supported from what I've heard. Clear indication, expectations also from the committee. We agree as the committee. Can I allow Team Finance, Dr. Mampo, to comment on or give clarities on what members have said here?
Chairperson, thank you very much. I actually had numbers and slides that I wanted to share, but I think because of time, I will send this documentation to Cindy, who will circulate to the committee, and those deal with the budget reductions for the Treasury, just to make sure members can see that if you take out all of these allocations to the Land Bank and the Provincial Equitable Share, if you look at the total budget for Treasury, it was a reduction, but also another slide on the political party funding that I prepared that I can also share with the members. I'm going to ask my colleague, Edgar Sishi, to deal with the engagements that we have been having with Parliament. But Chairperson, just to mention is that because Parliament is a different arm of state, we as Treasury provide a supporting role to Parliament in dealing with some of these problems. So it is Parliament through the acting secretary that must push the change in PAMED rather than Treasury interfering in the running of Parliament. So what we do is to advise Parliament on possible options, but at the end, the Parliament itself has to take the actions in terms of dealing with PAMED. But I'm going to ask Edgar quickly to deal with the two matters. Edgar, please go ahead.
Thanks, Mampo, and thank you very much, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members. Yeah, just to respond, and I'm going to respond, I think, and try to be.
Can you please open your video, sir?
Can you not see me?
No, you are visible. You are visible. I like the spectacles.
Okay. Yeah, I thought I was visible. Yeah, so just a couple of things. Obviously, as honorable members have indicated, and as Dr. Modise was indicating in her presentation, and I take the point made by members that we don't really want to dwell on the issue of cuts as such, but of course, everybody has experienced baseline reductions. There was a question around, I think it was Honorable Julius about did Treasury check, the individual needs and so forth. The answer is yes, we did. In fact, we look in detail at these things, and I can assure honorable members two things. The first is that obviously our situation fiscally is very, very tough at the moment, extremely tough. Indeed, as we indicated in February, if we do not take the measures we're taking, I can definitely assure you that the conversations we are having now will come to nothing when you have no money. It won't, there'll be nothing to allocate if we don't take steps to restore the health of public finances. This is very critical. We have never had the kind of revenue shortfalls we are experiencing, and we have never had the levels of debt that we have, and we've never been paying the amounts of interest on debt that we're paying as government, never in the history of this country. And indeed, our levels of fiscal challenge are much worse than peer countries. Those of you that read carefully the global economic outlook presentations, both by the IMF and World Bank, will have seen last month that the debt levels among emerging market countries are around 60% of GDP on average. South Africa is sitting at 80%, so our situation is worse. So I just wanted to put that before members to understand that everybody is taking pain in this budget, and in some cases much more certainly than Parliament. On the issue of PARMED, we did write to Parliament back in 2018, giving our formal position on this. So we have not received a reply since that time. We wrote to both the Speaker of the National Assembly and to the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, a letter signed by the Minister of Finance, in which we explained in great detail what we believe needs to happen in this regard. And as Mampo was saying just now, PARMED is a medical insurance scheme of Parliament with a board of trustees. And of course, the accounting officer of Parliament, the Secretary of Parliament, is actually the person in terms of law who's directly responsible for driving the kind of reform that's necessary with respect to PARMED. And the reason I'm saying it like that, with the greatest respect, honorable members, is that at the end of the day, any insurance scheme, including a medical insurance scheme such as PARMED, it doesn't matter where it is, every insurance scheme has to have a structure where the benefit arrangement is not out of line with the contributions. Otherwise, such a scheme, whether it's in the public sector or private sector, can't survive. It needs to be made sustainable. And the accounting officer and the board of trustees are responsible in this regard. We make these and numerous other points in the letter that the minister signed in 2018 to Parliament on this matter. So I think if Parliament wants to have another engagement that's focused on it, we welcome that, that's fine. We're perfectly happy. But I do want to indicate to yourself, Madam Chair, and to the members who are here, just to correct any misconception that we've somehow not given specific guidance. We've actually written a very lengthy correspondence to Parliament back in 2018 on this matter. And our position in that regard, Chairperson, has not changed. And we await both a response from Parliament and the Acting Secretary, as well as any additional information from the Board of Trustees of PARMED, which we indicated would be required in that letter that we sent in order for us to be able to take the matter further. That being said, we continue with discussions. We've had discussions during the course of this year, 2021, including in an attempt to request more information so that we can take the matter forward. So we welcome a meeting, Honorable Chair, but I want to ensure members that we have been engaging on this matter for some time. We've not in any way been neglectful of this matter of the Parliament, as well as the matter as well of early retirement of members of Parliament. Thank you, Honourable Chair.
Thank you, Team Treasury. Honourable members, let me check with Cindy. I think you have noted also that among issues that we need to address is the progress in terms of the proposal by the committee that legislatures need to take responsibility in terms of their members from the legislatures in the provinces. Members, I want to check if you have been triggered or responses by National Treasury. Anything? And Dr. Janji, Director for PBO, you're welcome. You can also have a bite if you so wish. You are allowed to participate.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. I will come in later. Thank you so much.
Okay. Members, are you fine? Can we move? Mampo, I see your hand is up.
I'm sorry, Chair. There's one question I didn't respond to. Do I still have time or are we gonna move?
No, you can respond. We can't leave anything unattended.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Let me just switch on my video quickly. So the question was, what does lesser transfers to public entities mean? So, Honorable Member, what we do is in the budget, we include transfers to entities such as SANRAL, PRASA, NSFAS, the CCMA, different museums. So with these budget reductions, all of those transfers were also reduced by the same percentage for public entities, just to make sure that the budget reductions are across the different spheres, but also for the public entities. Thanks, Chair. That was just the clarity question.
Okay, thank you, Team Treasury. I think members, there's no indication that you have an appetite to have a second bite on the matter. We can then move to the second item of the agenda. With your permission, which is number 2, Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. I don't know who's leading the team from Public Works. Public Works, can I hand over to you, please?
The Deputy Minister is here.
Oh, the Deputy Minister is here. Deputy Minister, you're welcome. Can I hand over to you to go to our next item? And co-chairperson will take care of the meeting in the meantime while I'm responding to Nature. Co-chair, Deputy Minister. DM. Team Public Works, is the DG here? Can you confirm if there's a problem with maybe the gadget or any technical problem?
The person, I'm also in communication with the PLO, but they are online. So I am in communication with the parliamentary liaison officer.
Can you ask her to alert the minister that we are waiting for her to talk to us?
I have, Chair. The minister's already in. She might just have stepped away, but I've alerted them.
DM, Deputy Minister, okay. You're welcome. I can see the hand up somewhere.
No, Chair, thank you very much.
Multitasking.
Besides multitasking, it's the space I'm in, Chair. I ran to close the door because it's quite a public place. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Chair, and a good afternoon to the honorable members, the honorable co-chairpersons, as well as the team supporting the honorable members and the team from the department. Because I was out a bit, Chair, I think it's our turn to present now. And if that is so, I will start by first acknowledging the fact that this is not the first time that we are appearing before the committee. It's more of a follow-up meeting, which is intended to brief and take account to the honorable members around the fire issues, but as well as the budget of the Parliament with respect to the upgrade of the kitchens, the projects that we are having. My Chair is really not to bore you because there were discussions in the last meeting, but it is to say that the team from the department is led by the acting DG, who will take the presentation together with his team to update the honorable members on the fire issue, but also as we indicated in the last meeting, that owing to access or lack thereof to the fire area, which was dubbed a scene of crime at some point, we now have had that access, and the team will then give detail of how far we've gone. It may not be a very different presentation from the last one, but as it is intended to update, but will cover also the part that we did not have access to, as well as then the program for the kitchens. But when we deal with that one, Chair, because I like to talk once and at the beginning, and I will come back during questions, I would indicate that with that item on the kitchens, we still have to consult with the Speaker, or that is the Executive Authority of Parliament, because in the meetings we've held with the Executive Authority of Parliament, the Speaker and the Chair of the NCOP, in fact, all presiding officers, we had that agreement that for any project that is to take place in Parliament, there has to be that agreement to say when does the project, what is the project, how much does it cost, when is it going to take place, all that kind of detail. And therefore, this is a preliminary when we talk the kitchens, until they go through that executive authorities approval, then we will start implementing. I thought I needed to just highlight those, that we do have meetings of the executive authority on most of these matters. I will hand over to the DG, acting DG, with your permission, Honorable Chairperson. I have with me Mr. Imtiaz Faisal, who is acting Director General of the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. And thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and members of the committee. The Deputy Minister, I think, has given a sufficient introduction. I would merely want to add that based on the known scope of work, we are now on the cusp of registering a project. We are also, or we have also identified funding for this project, and we are on the verge of developing a full scope of work, which will be ready by the 25th of May. So we've achieved a lot of progress in this regard. And since the last meeting, the visits to the site were concluded last week, Friday, and today we have the updated presentation. I'd like to then, Chairperson, hand over to Mzwandile Sazona. He's the head of our Prestige unit, as well as Tembeka Kolele. She's the head of projects in our Cape Town office, and the two of them will take us through the presentation, the updated presentation. Thank you so much, Chairperson.
Good afternoon, Co-Chairperson, and the members, honorable members. As we have promised in the last meeting, Co-Chair, that we are conducting a technical assessment of the damage that has happened. And we have now concluded that technical assessment and we compiled a report. Our presentation will focus on three areas, Chair: the cause of the fire, the maintenance related issues, and the way forward in terms of the restoration. And as a cause of in the course of our presentation as well, Chair, we will be covering issues that were raised in the last meeting, which primarily relate to maintenance and relate to budget and relate to insurance related issues. So we will cover some of those issues in the presentation. My colleague, Ms. Kolele, will come and present on the technical aspect of things, particularly relating to the maintenance and also the budget and the scope of work in terms of the restoration. Chair, before I deal with the issues of the cause of the fire, I need to mention a few issues. One, when it comes to the issue of restoration, we have segmented the issue of restoration into two parts. The first immediate restoration would be to fix the roof, which we have temporarily closed off the roof so that there should not be any water ingress into the building. Now that we have concluded our investigation, we will immediately start with the fixing of the roof, which we will complete that part of work before the end of June. Then the second part is what Ms. Kolele will be presenting, which is the restoration of the entire block, including the offices and room 454, which, Chair, we are working on the program in terms of getting the detailed scope and registering a project around it and getting funding for that restoration. Chair, it's a common cause by now that the fire started on the 16th of March, and the fire incident happened at the old assembly building. The city of Cape Town was notified of the fire, and the fire brigade was dispatched and extinguished the fire. The fire detectors were activated firstly in the National Assembly and also went on to the old assembly. And our officials, our maintenance team, tried to extinguish the fire through use of the handheld fire extinguishers. And when the fire started to spread, the sprinkler system activated. And thereafter, the fire brigade came in to take over the extinguishing of the fire. That Chair took about 2 hours, and this happened at room 454, which is one of the committee rooms. Slide over. Our technical team, Chair, visited the site between the 10th and the 14th, and they came up with a report. Chair, I need to first raise two issues when it comes to incidents relating to fire. The first is that in all fire incidences, it is very difficult for any investigators to come with a conclusive report as to what is the real cause of the fire. And in most of the investigations relating to fire, you will either conclude that it was as a result of arson or it was a result of an accident. Because by its nature, fire destroys the evidence that should be the basis of coming with a conclusive evidence. In this instance, Chair, the first report we received was from the police, where they couldn't find any evidence that there was an arson committed. And the second report we received, Chair, was that from the fire department, which they also concluded that the cause of the fire was accidental as a result of the electrical fault. Our team, the second element, Chair, is that our team visited the site 2 months later, which makes it much difficult. But however, I must say, Chair, there are no reports that there was a contamination of the site. The site was found to still have some evidence that they can be able to base their conclusion on. The report from our technical team, firstly, Chair, indicates that there are electrical reticulation of sound and visual, HVAC, fire detection and lighting that is on the roof void, which is between the ceiling tiles and the roof. Now, what might have happened, Chair? The conclusion of our investigation is that what might have happened is either the downlights, the overheating of the downlights, or the short of any of those electrical regulation might have been the cause of the fire. As I said, Chair, it is very difficult for anyone to come with any conclusive evidence as to what. But looking on what they've seen on site and the little evidence that what might have happened on the electrical reticulation is either because of the overheating of the downlights, or there's been a short in any of those reticulation, either being the sound and visuals, either being the HVAC, either being the fire detection or the lighting. Chair, this is not a normal thing to happen. It's one of the rare cases that you find that that those reticulations would have a short, or would have or the sound, the lighting, the downlights will temper with any of those lighting of those electrical reticulation. However, we looked at this as a department. We then said, together with Parliament, we had a discussion on this matter. We said we have to make sure that we do maintenance of the roof void, and to ensure that all the reticulation that goes through that roof void is being maintained regularly. We will discuss this matter with our maintenance teams and maintenance contractors to see what should be the regularity of that maintenance. Chair, through your permission, I want to give over to my colleague, Ms. Kolele, to take us through the maintenance program and the maintenance schedules, and also the maintenance certificates to prove the maintenance that has been happening in the precinct, not only in this part of the building, but also throughout the precinct, and the regularity of those maintenance. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Good afternoon, members, honorable members, DM, DG, and my colleagues. In terms of the maintenance aspect in the precinct.
Chairperson, I'm sorry to intervene. I see on the chat our communications there, the broadcasters, they're complaining. We have requested that maybe you were not here at DPWI, that when you speak, please switch your video on, please. You can do that and turn back. I thank you, Chair.
Okay, Honorable Chairperson. I was just trying to locate myself in a proper position. Chairperson, in terms of the maintenance, the department can confirm that all the equipment and all the buildings in the precinct are regularly maintained, and maintenance plans for the equipment can be summarized as follows. We've just selected the items that are related to the incident, but I have, I've got a file here with the different components, the different certificates that were requested, and also the schedules to reflect what we have summarized in this slide. The electrical distribution boards, they are maintained on an annual basis. The lighting we replace as and when required. And then in terms of the fire detection, we are maintaining the fire detection annually. The fire extinguishers, hose reels, and hydrants, they also have an annual service and a monthly visual inspection. I think when you walk around the passages in the precinct, if you stop at any fire hose reel or fire extinguisher, you will see that there's a little sticker that is there. It will show you, that sticker will show you the last date of service and the next date to which that fire extinguisher must be serviced. The fire sprinkler system is maintained on annual basis, and the REMRAD system is maintained quarterly. The REMRAD system is the system that is connecting, it's almost like an alarm that rings at the fire department when a fire ignites in the precinct. And pre-SONA, there was an inspection and it showed no irregularities. And with all the equipment that is in the precinct, we had to, as part and parcel of the responsibility of the department, we have to do pre-SONA, we have to do the inspections and also follow up with all the maintenance and get all the signed certificates. I have a file here with the SONA 2021 maintenance plans and all the certificates and the confirmations from the service providers. And we also have a file for SONA 2020, because those would be your interim checks and balances to the annual maintenance plans that we have in the precinct. I'm not sure if I should proceed, Mr. Sazona, or you want to take over and continue with the presentation?
You may continue, but I'm trying to fix my video.
Chairperson, in terms of the scope of the restoration project, we can confirm that the fire damage is only limited to the roof space and the ceiling of room 454. However, due to the time that it took to switch off the sprinkler system, the damage to the other areas is due to the water ingress coming from the sprinkler system. On the previous two slides, we reflected there that the fire actually took about 2 hours to be extinguished by the fire department. And at the time, we had to wait for the fire department to confirm that the site is safe for us to switch off the sprinkler system. So all the areas, except for room 454, the damage that is there is due to the water ingress that's coming from the sprinkler system. In fact, Chairperson, the sprinkler system is one of the proofs that because when it came on, it's a proof that the sprinkler system actually is functional, because it functioned when the time for it was needed to be functional. In terms of roof 454, the final assessment has confirmed that the fire originated in the roof void of room 454. I think we've explained on the previous slide. So extensive repairs and reinstatement of ceilings, flooring, and audiovisual installation is required. I will, after we've reflected on this slide, show the different pictures of how the room looks like, including the other areas, Chairperson, as requested from the previous meeting. So in this room, we will conduct extensive refurbishment in order to restore the room to its original functioning space. Room 454 is serviced by a dedicated ductway hideaway system, and the damage to the components is deemed unrepairable, and allowance is being made to replace the HVAC to this room with new components. Now you would see that in other areas, we don't have an extensive damage as we do in room 454. We can confirm, as we confirmed in the previous presentation, Chairperson, that the facade of the building has not been affected, so there will be no work that will be carried out for the external facade of the old assembly. In terms of the roof, I think Mr. Sazona mentioned earlier that there has been a damage to the pitch roof, and we have closed it temporarily, but we would actually start with that area because the winter season in Cape Town is quite wet. So we will try and deal with the roof first, then we deal with the rest of the restoration project. But the underside of the roof will be dealt with the restoration project when the service providers have been appointed to do the work that needs to be done in there. In terms of the office floors, although there has been no fire on the office floors, the extensive damage, like I mentioned before, is actually caused by the water ingress. The final inspection that was carried out on the 12th of May confirmed the damages as set out below. The floors have been damaged. You would remember some of the offices have got opaque flooring, which is wooden floors. It has swelled because of the water ingress. We would be replacing the lighting inside the rooms. We'll be replacing the plugs, electrical plug points in all the offices. Every floor is fed by its own dedicated distribution board, which is currently not energized. So limited repairs would be done on the distribution boards, but the overall electrical reticulation remains intact. So there has been no real damage, but as we are doing the work, we will be inspecting and making the necessary changes where possible. But our engineers have said that the reticulation itself, it is intact, so there has been no extensive damage there. The offices are served by a centralized system, and final inspections have confirmed that the system is largely intact. I think on the meeting that we had earlier with Parliament, there has been a complaint about the smoke, but we would be sanitizing the system in order to deal with the smoke that is probably, the smoke residue that is probably still inside the system before the occupation can be done in that space. The damage to equipment and instruments will be reported by my colleagues from Parliament. We've also seen damage, extensive damage to the ceilings and the lifts. In fact, the next, I think I've skipped the slide. Okay. In terms of the lifts, there are 2 lifts servicing this wing of the building, and these lifts have been grounded. I think we reported on this on the last presentation. Schindler has provided a quote, and we felt that the quotation was a bit excessive, but we've had engagements with Schindler, and we have also asked our consultants to just confirm, because we've asked an independent consultant to confirm what the Schindler is stipulating as the scope of work. And as of today, this morning, at this morning's meeting, it was confirmed that the consultants are actually saying that the recommendations by Schindler, they're acceptable. So we would be engaging in terms of looking at how we can cater for the issue of the costs. Now, in terms of the outcome of this report, we can confirm that the required actions and the costs have been concluded and the estimate has been updated accordingly. We can report, Chairperson, that the estimate from the last presentation that we did and today's presentation, the only change is about 300,000 if we were rounding it off. Last time we reported that the estimate is sitting at 10.5. Today, as the final cost estimate for this work, we are talking about 10.7 million. If we're rounding it off, we can say it's 10.8 million. You can see in terms of the breakdown that the different trades and the different floors have been scoped and costed accordingly. But the actual work, the cost of the actual work is 7.1 million. But in terms of the construction norms, we have to add the pre-escalation and the post-escalation to allow for the changes, the price changes when it comes to the rates that the colleagues have used on the estimate, just to make sure that we cater for any eventuality in terms of the cost. And we have also made an allowance there for 10% as a contingency to anything that might have happened. Then in terms of the conclusion, Chairperson, occupation remains suspended in that space. The occupants of the offices that are affected have been decanted to alternative accommodation. The structural engineer has confirmed that the building is sound. We have had both the consultants doing an inspection, and we had our own departmental engineers coming to do an inspection, and they have confirmed that the structure is sound. So the water ingress and the fire has not affected the strength of the building. Then the last point, I think Mr. Sazona would be handling that one. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Tembeka. Thank you, Chair. Chair, there's been a question around the issue of insurance and why we are not insuring. Chair, in terms of the National Treasury regulations of the PFMA, clause 12.1.1 requires that government departments, sorry, Chair. The clause requires that government departments, I'm not sure, Chair, whether I'm still on the screen.
Yes, you are.
Okay. It requires that the government departments must self-insured, that all risks relating to incidences, that the department will carry all those claims and losses. That is on the basis, Chair, that we're not allowed to insure. I had a discussion as well, Chair, with the CFO of the department. The reason that National Treasury have put this clause is, if you can imagine, Chair, of all the buildings, if we can insure them, the state would have to pay billions and billions of money to insurance companies at the times when these incidences want to happen. So it was on that basis, Chair, that we haven't insured the immovable properties. For movable properties, you can insure up to the value of up to the premium of 250,000 rand. That is why at times when we are traveling, even the cars that we are hiring, the movable properties, we are not insuring. The state assumes self-insurance for that. Chair, there was a question as well on the issue of budget for what Public Works is responsible for, which is the immovable infrastructure. We will be using our budget to do that, and whether that budget is available. Chair, I must say that under the constraints that we have on the budget, which National Treasury has alluded to in the earlier presentation, we don't have a budget for any incidences. We always use what we call a suspense account. But in this instance, Chair, we will look at our projects, some of the projects that are not performing, where we'll be having savings, and we will divert those savings in this restoration project, as it is an important project for us to deal with. Thank you very much, Chair. I think we can take questions.
The pictures.
Thank you very much. No. Yes, can you continue with the photos?
Chairperson, thank you. These are some of the pictures that we have taken inside the three first pictures that you have seen. Those are the pictures of the offices. You can see the extensive damage that has been done to the flooring. Those are the wet ceilings that we would be replacing in the project. This is the extent of the damage. These are the passages that we have had to deal with. The opaque flooring I was talking about earlier, those are some of the pieces of the flooring, but that's the damage that the water has caused into the floors. There's the ceilings that have fallen off inside of some of the offices. These are some of the damages that have been caused on the floors. So we would be dealing with these damages on the restoration project. Chairperson, you can see we've gone into each and every office, and we have assessed the extent of the damage into each and every office. And then in terms of room 454, that's the extent of the damage that you can see on room 454. The ceilings have to be dealt with, the HVAC, and that's the picture of the roof from the underside of from inside the building. That's the extent. I think we've seen a couple of these pictures last week. but we would be dealing, in fact, all the furniture that you see in terms of the movable furniture has been removed. It's only the fixed fixtures that still remain in that roof space, in that room. If you look at the roof space, that's the extent of the damage to the roof. And these are the distribution boards. And I think that's the extent of the damages onto the ceiling. The picture I've got in front of you, and you can see that little round item there, that's the smoke detector. That's the smoke detectors that are fixed on the underside of the ceiling. Those were functional by the time that the fire occurred in the old assembly, and we would be replacing those with the restoration project. I think this is the end of the pictures, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the presentation. I want to also confirm that this is not a new meeting, it's a continuation of our meeting. So we're taking over from where we left the last week. Some issues that were raised have been responded to, but I don't know, unless if I've missed it, the restoration costs, which would be of importance for members to know how much will it cost Public Works to then finally complete this project, unless if I've missed it somewhere. But then I will then open the floor for members to raise questions and comments. Cindy, may you please assist me with that regard?
Will do, Chair. For now, there are no questions from members, Chair, for now.
Members, the floor is open for further engagement. Let's take off where we left last week.
Yes, my hand is up, Chair.
Cindy, please assist in noting members.
I understand the acting secretary wants to speak. Chair.
Can we note?
So far, it's only Mr. Kaiso, but there's another slot for the acting secretary to respond to questions about.
Member Hadebe, please mute your mic. Okay, before members can pose questions, can I afford you an opportunity to speak, Member Jawa?
Chairperson, I'm sorry. This is actually first an apology for this meeting, but secondly, my matter is on the past item of National Treasury. So I do not know if the meeting would allow me, but if you don't, it doesn't matter. We will actually respond by a written letter, but I'll be guided by yourself, Chair.
Okay, a written response will be appropriate. We've gone past that item.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yes, it's fine. Member Kaiso?
Yes, Honorable Coach, I don't know whether maybe it's because I understand that the conclusion or technical conclusion of the matter or the nature of conclusion, the manner it has been put, you know, it's like to just a layman, you know, or an ordinary person in the street, when you say that it's always difficult to when such an incident has occurred, you will have something such as a definite or a final, or is it a first final, or we are expecting a second final conclusion on the matter. Whether is it not possible, for the parliament to can get an advice, for instance, from the Institute of, was it CSIR or some, there is this institute which can look after such, incident and put a very, a scientific, input on such matter, which we can utilize, in future, so that we don't have something called, or find it very difficult to make a scientific conclusion on such a difficult matter. Can't we implore the assistance of such institute to can assist in future, so that we do not have a answer that something that hang on in the cloud, as a conclusion of a technical nature, that say when such an incident has occurred, we do not find any, a proper final conclusion of a technical matter. Can't we implore the assistance of such institute to assist us in this matter? Secondly, it was just, I know we talked about previously about the issue of occupational health and safety. Maybe it was rounded up, but I missed it. The issue of occupational health and safety committee, because that their report it is also important during this instance. If we do not still have in parliament, then we still have to find it, operational with immediate effect, such that it should be one of the report that is part of this process, to say at least we are safe, even at an operational level. There's a report from the occupational health and safety that was sourced. It's part of the report. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you very much, Honorable Co-Chair.
Thank you, member. I see Honorable Khai.
Thank you very much, Co-Chairperson. Maybe what we could say, Chair, is that we welcome the report by Honorable Deputy Minister Dichi and the team, and we regard it as a work in progress.
Please raise your voice or speak closer to your gadget.
Okay, sorry, Chair. No, I was saying that we should welcome the report, and it's a work in progress report, and that we should be briefed from time to time with regard to the stages of refurbishing the sections or the floors that have been affected. So from time to time, we should then be briefed. But on the issue that is raised by Honorable Kaiso, we have received the report from Parliament, which covers some of the issues that you raised, including the HR issues. It was emailed to members, but I think Mekiawa also responded last week with regard to the issues of health and safety committees. Thank you very much, Chair.
We have lost you, Honorable Member.
Hello?
Am I audible? Can anyone hear me?
We can hear you, Chair.
I don't know if then I've been heard.
We've lost the last part. I don't know whether it was the last part. Please, if you can just.
No, I was saying there with regard to the issues that are raised by Honorable Kaiso about the Health and Safety Committee in Parliament. Mekiawa responded to that issue last week, but also there's a report on the issues that we raised that was circulated or emailed to members that include various issues, including the HR issues that we ask questions about. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, honorable members. Those were the two comments. Co-chair, would you like to say something? Co-chair, before I hand over for responses, would you like to make any input? Okay, it seems like we've lost the co-chair as well. Work in progress. Public Works, you'll still be expected to come and give us a progress update. We'll schedule meetings as we progress. If you can respond to issues raised and also explain why the costs are not reflected on your final report. Thank you very much. Over to you. I'm not sure who's going to be responding.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'll ask my colleagues to respond. I think the main question is on the restoration costs, and we've noted the need to make regular visits to the committee to brief the committee on progress. But with the restoration costs, I think I must first ask my colleagues to respond to that question. We do have a good sense about the total scope as well as the costs associated with that, so we can share that. Zwandile and Tembeka, can you please respond to that question?
Thank you very much, Acting DG. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Co-Chair. In respect of the cost, I think Tembeka has put up the cost. She can put it again. The cost there was about 10.7, but those costs excluded some of the items that we have agreed with Parliament that Public Works will absorb. For example, the immovable infrastructure in the committee room that was destroyed, which we have agreed that is a responsibility of Public Works. We are going to do the assessment and come with the cost related to that. But Tembeka has put those costs. If she can put them up, everyone can see. It's 10. Thank you, Chair. And in respect of the questions of Honorable Kaisa, and also Honorable Khai, I thought, Chair, Co-Chair, that those two matters, the issue of the safety committees and the report from the safety committees, which Honorable Khai has responded to it, that there was a report from Parliament, and also the element of further investigation being done. I thought those two issues were referred to Parliament to do that investigation, and commission other bodies to do that investigation, if my understanding was correct, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair.
Rebecca, you want to add before we end that?
No, I'm fine, DG. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. That's all from our side on this particular item.
Okay, thank you. Members, I don't see any further hands. We in agreement that this is work in progress, and that we'll be receiving updates on any achievements. In the absence of further comments from members, I would want to propose that we then move to the next item, which is the renovations of kitchens.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. Co-Chair, we have...
The Minister is here.
Okay.
I had already made the preface.
Okay, we good then, DM. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you, Mzwai. You can carry on.
Thank you very much, Acting DG. On the issue of the kitchen project, Co-Chair, DM has already alluded to the process that we are following, followed the agreement between the two executive authority that every project within Parliament has to be signed off by both executive authority. This is one project that is on that process of being finalized between the two executive authority. But we thought, Chair, that we need to come with a very comprehensive presentation, which is probably about 40-something slides, which talks to the detail and the technical aspect of this project. I will just do the introduction of this. Tembeka will come on the technical side of the scope of work that needs to be done on the kitchens. This project, Chair, was initiated about 6 or 7 years ago. At the time of the initiation of the project, we estimated the cost of this project to be about 7 million. These relates to the refurbishment of the 4 kitchens, which is the National Assembly, the NCOP, which is on the older assembly side, between the old assembly and the NCOP, the 90 plane, and the one in the Marx building. At that time, Chair, the scope of work was kind of a limited scope of work. It didn't include the changing of the equipments. It only talked about the casual reticulation of electrical wires, the changing of the kitchens to be compliant with regulations that were applicable at that time. Between that time and now, Chair, there's been a tremendous change, both on the compliance side, in terms of legislation, when it comes to handling of food and in the kitchen, how then your kitchen should be structured, what are the compliance-related matters. Secondly, Chair, there's been, during the consultation process, we also invited the chefs to be part of the team to design and come with specification. Then there was a requirement for us to change the equipments that way, because most of the equipments were outdated, they were old, they were not suitable for the refurbishment that we'll be doing on the kitchens. So the costs that are related to this, at times people confuse that and think that they cover only one kitchen. I need to mention, Chair, that these are 4 kitchens. When we were doing the NCOP refurbishment, we included the kitchen that is in NCOP to be part of that project, which we have done the refurbishment. If, Chair, you'd remember there was a time when that kitchen was closed, which was at the time that we're doing the refurbishment of the NCOP project, which we're about to complete. But what was left out of that project was then the changing of the equipments to be used. We put the same equipments, so they have been included in this project to ensure that we change those equipments. Tembeka, can you take us through the specification and the scope of work and the technical aspect of that scope of work? Chair, it's a long presentation, but what Tembeka will present on the NA kitchen is the same that is applicable to all other kitchens, and it will give you the cost of each of those kitchens separately, and then we'll come at the end with the consolidated cost. So, Chair, through your permission, if the members will allow, that if Tembeka do the first presentation on NA, the other presentation are the same. But if the members want us to do and go through the whole slides, we can do that as well. Thank you very much, Chair. Tembeka, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sazon. Thank you very much, Chair. I think Mr. Sazon has summarized the extent of the scope, but I will just be going into much detail. The first slide just depicts where the location of the 4 kitchens that this project entails. And then in terms of the background itself, we appointed the consultants in March 2019. And during the briefing that was held in our offices in Cape Town, the user client was there, which is represented by Parliament. The project managers and the appointed consultants were part of the brief. The 4 kitchens, as depicted and mentioned earlier, this is the team of consultants that was appointed for the project. Then in terms of this actual scope in the National Assembly kitchen, now we've had numerous meetings as mentioned before, and there's specific items that we had to cover in terms of the requirements from the user client or from Parliament. Now we've started with the architectural scope of work. In the basement part of the kitchen, we'll be replacing all the ceramic floor tiles. We would be looking and replacing the suspended ceilings. We'll be replacing and upgrading the lighting and the electrical plugs. The wall tiles that are in the kitchens, we would be removing and replacing those. The cold rooms and the freezer rooms would be also replaced, but we've got the design layout on the other slides. The deep freezers would be replaced. The new exhaust fans in the kitchens, as you know, that there must be proper ventilation in the kitchens for them to function properly. We would be replacing and introducing the updated specifications in terms of the requirement. We'll be building on this specific kitchen, we'll be building a 1.2 meter wall in order to utilize or to create a functional space for the specific kitchen. On the second floor, it's almost the same thing. We'll be replacing the floor tiles, the suspended ceilings. We'll be dealing with the lighting and also all the tiles that are in the walls and on the floor. And we would also be introducing the exhaust fan in the kitchens. In terms of the pictures on the slides, we tried to introduce so that we can paint a specific picture, Chairperson, of what we are talking about in these kitchens. This is the National Assembly kitchen. On the left-hand side, that's the cooking area. There you see the machine, the type of equipment that we will be replacing on this project. In the middle picture, is talking to the freezer rooms that will also be replaced as part of the project. And on my right-hand side, we're looking at the preparation area, which will also be reconfigured to be suitable for the needs of Parliament. Now, the way we've structured the presentation, we are depicting the architectural work, the electrical work, and the mechanical work. The electrical scope of work, I'm trying to summarize, Chairperson, will be dealing with making the distribution boards compliant. We would be changing the switch gears, we'll be changing the wiring, and we would make the distribution boards compliant. This does not mean that they are not safe, but we will be upgrading them to meet the latest SANS requirement. In terms of the powers, we would be introducing power skirting so that you can have as many power points in the kitchen to make the space functional. And then we'll be replacing the outdated, inefficient light fittings. You would know, Chairperson, now we are all every building that we are renovating, we have to put energy efficient lighting, and we have to make in fact, the energy efficient lighting comes in the form of LED fittings, which actually improve the lighting in the spaces. So the lighting will be improved, but also there will be energy efficient lights. We will be providing PowerPoints for the workstations, electrical equipment, electronic services, and the mechanical services. So the points would be for the equipment itself, but also for the functioning of the spaces for the workstations and any other electrical equipment that we would have in the kitchens. We would install dedicated trays, trunking power and power skirtings for internal reticulation of the electronic services. And we would also have an additional emergency voice evacuation speakers. They would be added to the existing system. You would know that in Parliament, we have an existing system. So we would add this to the kitchen area so that they could also be in the grid, in the system grid. We would also install additional fire detection devices in the existing system, and we would provide wireways for the ICT infrastructure that needs to be installed, for the access control and the intercom system and the intrusion detection system and the surveillance system. So we would create these wireways, and then the system would be installed in the wireways because we are already working in that space. In terms of the mechanical scope of work, we are trying to make the kitchen functional. So the chefs have assisted our technical team on how to make the kitchens functional for their daily use. They would like to optimize the functionality. So we have taken all of those requirements into consideration. The kitchen canopy, the current one that is there, is not adequate, and it doesn't have the makeup, that's the fresh air installation into the kitchen. So we would be replacing that. The extraction system we are replacing. We are also going to deal with the drainage system. You would know with the kitchen, you need to have the drains on the floor so that the spillage that comes in there can go through. So we would be designing that. And we're also, there is a central guest installation in Max Building Kitchen and 90 Plain. So we would be almost synergizing the configuration of the guest system. And then in terms of the layout and the installation, we would be introducing new kitchen canopies, ducting fans, and then we'd also be creating or introducing a new makeup air system. We would be installing a new fire suppression in canopies. We would be installing the new floor drains, as I've already indicated. We would move and reconnect the gas points to the new equipment. The cold freezer room and the external insulation panels are damaged, so those would also be dealt with. In terms of the seals, I think you can see the freezer rooms have got the freezer rooms. They've got these big doors. I think I've indicated on the previous picture. So the seals to the doors have they are all now finished. They are not functional anymore. So we would be making the new freezer doors and the freezer rooms to have the proper seals in order for them to function correctly, because you're not supposed to be having air coming into the freezer rooms and the cold rooms. This is just the rest of then the mechanical scope of work. And then in terms of the design considerations, we've also just included this on the presentation, what SANS requirements that we are trying to address and SANS requirements that we need to comply with. So we've actually put in all the design consideration as part of the presentation, so that you can understand, or you can see how we have come to the sizes that have been depicted and what we are trying to comply with in terms of the current regulation. So we'll be dealing in terms of the mechanical scope. In fact, the bulk of the cost of these projects is on the mechanical work, electrical work, the kitchen equipment, and some of the smaller components that we need to replace in the kitchens. In terms of the next kitchen, it's Mark's Building. The Mark's Building kitchen, it also has the same or similar scope. The differences, Chairperson, would be on the sizes and also in terms of the functional spaces, because you can see the precinct is designed differently. So the functioning of these spaces would differ from one kitchen to another. In terms of the scope, we are also replacing the floors. We are dealing with the ceilings. We are dealing with the electrical plugs. We are also just changing the wall tiles. The freezer rooms are being replaced. Cold rooms are also being replaced. In this kitchen, we are also dealing with the sinks, because I think you also only have one sink area where they have to wash off all the utensils from the kitchen. So we are introducing a double sink on this kitchen. In terms of the picture of the kitchen, you can immediately see the differences on the kitchens. On my left-hand side, the extraction system that I was talking about, Chairperson, it's that V that you can see from the top. we would be replacing that because it's supposed to extract the hot steam from the pots and take it outside and bring in fresh air into the kitchen. And the drainage would be introduced in that area, because when you've got big pots in the kitchen, the drainage must actually happen on the spot, because you can't pick up that pot and take it to the sink. So everything must happen within that space. So Chairperson will be. Yes, ma'am.
No, give us the pictures. We see now a full picture of yourself as opposed to the pictures that you are talking to. If you can make it the other way around.
Oh. Okay, Chairperson, noted. Let me see.
Okay, thank you.
Is it better if I do it like that, Chairperson? Or must my face remain on the screen?
Your face is no longer there. Give us the pictures and then give us a break of your face for now. We've seen you, we love you. Give us more of the pictures now. Don't worry about your face. We've seen your face.
Okay.
We are more on following the pictures.
Okay. Can you see the pictures clearly now, Chairperson?
They're still small. If you can quickly, they're appearing on my far right. I'm not sure with other members, but on my PC they're not visible at all. They're small and appearing on my far right.
We can see it, Coach.
Oh, it means I'm using an outdated. It's fine. Let's continue. If members can see, it's fine.
Okay, Chairperson. This is the Max Building kitchen. The left-hand side is the cooking area. I've already explained the extraction system and that equipment that we would be replacing, because you can see actually that that equipment is a little outdated. In terms of the middle picture, that's the preparation area. That preparation area would be reconfigured in terms of what we have consulted with the chefs to be. So we've got a layout. Our presentation was actually quite bulky, because we even had the drawings installed in this presentation, but it didn't work in terms of sending it out, and the pictures were not looking very great on the presentation slides. So that's the preparation area. You can see the little equipment, pieces of equipment that are on the prep area. We would also be replacing some of that. Then in terms of the coffee area, I think on the presentation we've mentioned, you can see that that space also needs to be reconfigured, Chairperson, a little bit. So in terms of the Max Building kitchen, we are dealing with those are just some of the pictures, but the kitchen is much bigger than what you see on the screen. In terms of the electrical work, the scope is similar to the previous kitchen I presented on. And then in terms of the mechanical work, the scope is also similar. And we have also included the SANS requirement. We have to comply with SANS 10252 and SANS 10400 when it comes to the design considerations for the mechanical work. But we have depicted all the requirements and the considerations on the presentation. And those are some of the calculations to show the pipe sizing and the sizes that we will be using in terms of the designs that we have already consolidated for the project. On the mechanical work, we're dealing with the refrigeration, we're dealing with the HVAC, we would be dealing with the drainage system, and we'll be dealing with the refrigeration. These are just some of the pictures as well. You can see where the 10-liter geyser that is feeding the sink, that installation is now outdated, but we would be installing a proper installation, geyser installation that would be on a safe space for that kitchen. In terms of the drainage, these are some of the pipings that we would be replacing in the kitchen. You can see the mixer and the drain materials on my right hand side. I'm trying to just make the pictures bigger so that we can see them. You can also see some of the drains. That installation is outdated, and I'm sure it's coming from way back when the kitchen was done, and perhaps at the time it complied, but with the new building regulations and the SANS requirements, we have to reconfigure some of these installations. These are some of the water points on figure 9, that's the water supply point. We would be fixing that installation and make it compliant. In terms of the fire extinguisher, Chairperson, the regulations call for the fire extinguisher to be 1.5 meters high. The level must be from 1.5 meters high from the floor. That fire extinguisher almost looks like it's hidden away. And if something happens, a person would struggle to get to that area. So we would be trying to create a more convenient and compliant space when it comes to Mark's Building Kitchen. In terms of 90 Plain Street, the scope, it consists of the ground and the first floor. And even with those areas, we would be reconfiguring the kitchen to suit the requirements from Parliament. In terms of the scope of work, we are dealing with the flooring. We'll be also replacing the ceilings, lighting and electrical plugs. The existing wall tiles will be replaced. The cold freezers will be replaced, and the sizing of the freezers is also done in conjunction with the consultation from Parliament and the Parliament chefs that we're talking to the professional team that we have appointed. So both those areas would be addressed, something similar to what we have presented on the previous slides, Chairperson. This is the 90 Plain kitchen. If you can see the preparation area, we have reconfigured that area in terms of the design that we have now, the new design layout, to make it also functional for the daily use by the chefs and the kitchen staff. On the central picture, that's the steel staircase that we have now also redesigned in order to make it compliant. You can see that doesn't actually look very user-friendly or safe, because now a staff member must actually carry a hot pot and go up and down, or hot items, but it doesn't look functional. So we have redesigned that staircase. And on my right-hand side, that's the dishwashing area. We have also reconfigured that dishwashing area, and we have made it to meet and suit the requirements from Parliament. Then, Chairperson, in terms of I'm trying to summarize as much as I can. Okay, then in terms of the electrical scope, it's similar to the scope that we dealt with in the previous kitchens. But obviously, due to the size and the requirements of each kitchen have been separated in terms of the needs. In terms of the mechanical scope of work, we are dealing with the wet services. The domestic water storage there's been no real issues with the domestic water storage. The hot water, we are also making it compliant. The plumbing, we are dealing with the piping issues that I've showed you in the previous slide. We would also be addressing in this project. And these are some of the calculations that we have used. On this kitchen, we are also dealing with the issue of ventilation, like the other kitchens, and the fire protection equipment. And these are the considerations that we have had. And we have more pictures, Chairperson, when it comes to the 90 Plain Street kitchen. The fire escape door is not compliant. It has a lock. It's supposed to have a push bar. We would be addressing that on the project. This is a fire suppression system. We'll also be making that compliant. Those are just some of the items that are obstructing the doors. And I think those have been addressed, Chairperson, by the maintenance team in Parliament. Then in terms of the doors for the current freezer and cold rooms, they've got some damages to the checker plates, and the floor finishes are not working so well. This is the cold room. We're also having some issues there. On the right-hand side, Chairperson, that's your freezer room. The space is not adequate, and you can see how the food is being packaged or packed or stacked in that kitchen. So we are in that freezer room. So we would be enhancing the size of the freezer room in order for it to cater adequately for the members of parliament. And then these are just some of the pictures to show you how the pipes, the pipe installation are looking like at the moment. The rubber seals on the doors that have been worn out. And you can also see that the panels that have been damaged on the figure 23, where we need to, we would be addressing them in the project as well. And then in terms of the NCOP kitchen, I think Mr. Sazone indicated we had extensive engagement with the two teams, the NCOP project team and the current team. Initially, when the project was supposed to be implemented, it was supposed to coincide with the completeness of the kitchen in the NCOP so that we can install the equipment, the new equipment in the NCOP in this project, because initially the NCOP kitchen was supposed to be just the normal renovation. So the project did not cater for the replacement of the kitchen equipment with the NCOP project. So this project is supposed to then address the issue of the equipment, to replace the equipment, because some of the equipment is outdated. We have tried to service some now so that the kitchen can be functional. But with this project, we would be replacing the kitchen equipment in the NCOP. This kitchen no longer looks the way that it looks on the presentation, because the kitchen has been reconfigured to meet the needs and the requirements of Parliament. Now, in terms of the cost estimate, Chairperson, we have broken down the cost per kitchen. The National Assembly kitchen the cost is about 5.2 million. The Max Building kitchen, you can see the size of that kitchen is much bigger, and the 90 Plain Street, the Max Building kitchen would be costing 7.1 million, and 90 Plain Street will cost 6.8 million. The NCOP kitchen, because it's only the replacement of the kitchen equipment, it will cost the department about 958,000. Then in terms of the 3.5% that we have set aside as contingencies, the total cost of the project itself would be 21.5, which is excluding VAT and the cost escalation and the fees. But in terms of the final total project cost, when you add the contingencies, when you add the escalation, pre-tender escalation and post-tender escalation, and you add VAT and the fees, the total project cost will be 29.8 million. We can round it off to 30 million. I think we have indicated before that the program that you have on the presentation is not it's not the updated program until the endorsement of the project has been concluded. Then the department and the professional team will update this program accordingly so that we can have a recent tender date. But this was the program that we were working towards at the time. Chairperson, as a conclusion, the project is on hold until the endorsement and the approvals have been granted for the department to continue with the implementation of the project. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Chairperson, just to add one point there, that we're dealing with the 4 kitchens, and the entire purpose of this particular program is to make the 4 kitchens functional and compliant. However, the scope is very flexible in terms of what is required. In the department, we had what we call the sketch plan stage. We've got the plans and the designs, and it's subject to the approval, of course, of the executive authority. And the main cost drivers are the equipment, as well as mechanical and electrical installations. So that's just the background, the Chairperson, but ultimately we'll be directed by our user, which is the Executive of Parliament, on how to proceed with this particular project. Thank you very much, Chair. Let's hand back to yourself.
Thank you very much. Can you go to your last slide, last slide? I think that's where I want to start with my comments. Last slide of the presentation. Yeah, that the project is on hold until such time that the final endorsement and approval is granted for the department to proceed with the implementation. I just wanted to reiterate this this statement that today's that's fine. Thank you. That today's meeting, it's not in any way giving the department a go ahead. We just needed more information and clarity on this matter of kitchen upgrades. Can you close the presentation? It's fine. Yeah, that we're not in any way giving you a go ahead to continue until that such time that we reach consensus on this matter. I've listened to your, I think it's 35 slides of your presentation, and the only time you mentioned a safety measure or a safety compliance is on the door in the NCOP kitchen and the stairs in the, I'm not sure whether it's in the old assembly, not old, is it old assembly? The stairs in the old assembly. So those are the two areas where you have mentioned issues of compliance, but throughout the presentation, it is just about upgrading. If those stoves are still in a good working condition, why should we upgrade? Why should we use public funds to modernize kitchens, especially during the pandemic? I mean, it's not even 40% of members who go to parliament, and we don't know how long are we going to be operating like this. So I just wanted to say that we understand and we know the economic situations that we are facing in the country. Earlier on, we had Treasury presenting on challenges facing the budget of Parliament. So budget of Parliament can be used in more productive ways, especially constituency work, making sure that we service our constituencies and we hold the executive accountable, but not necessarily promoting upgrading of kitchens. If it is not broken, why fix it? If stoves are not broken, if those sinks and coffee machines are still operating, they're functional, I think there won't be any hurry for us to then say public works must go in and fix those pipes and those things. There's a slide on consultants. You just flagged it, and then you just said those are the consultants that were appointed. Can you give us the scope of work for the consultants? And can you also tell us how much have been spent for consultants to undertake this work? My question will also then go back to the previous presentation. Did you use consultants? Because it would look like the scope would be more or less the same. Did you use the consultants for the previous project that you just presented to us? You can respond on that one in writing, it's fine, but on this one, please give us a breakdown of the consultancy fees and their scope of work. Members, I will open for comments. I know it is not for the first time that we are dealing with this matter. Can we get hands? Clarity seeking questions, comments and recommendations if there are any. Members, are you there? Oh, I'm the only one in this meeting. Are you there, members?
We are here.
Yes,
Okay.
we are here.
We are here.
Can we get comments? Or really sharp?
Chair, I think perhaps the challenge on our part with regard to the understanding of the whole project is our role as well as the role of the executive authority. it could be that the discussion has been with the executive authority, and also the endorsement and approval will be at that level. So maybe there should be clarity around that aspect. Perhaps maybe acting secretary can come in and clarify, so that we don't say they should go ahead, they should not go ahead, yet that will be out of our scope or jurisdiction. It's a matter between the executive authority and Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. But also the costs involved in refurbishing, will they come from Parliament budget, or they will come from the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure? Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Khai. Definitely, this is out of our mandate. The executive authorities will have to give a way forward on this matter. Members, any further takers? Okay.
I support
Member Marshall.
Yes, ma. I definitely support what the latter speaker has said, that we need to know the scope or our mandate as the committee, because our work is to recommend. So I think the executive authority has the powers to report to us on what is it that they're going to do in the next meeting. I will suggest that let's pack it for the next meeting when the executive authority is around, so that they can be able to help us in making sure that we understand the decision we are taking. Because most of the time, our work is to recommend and do oversight on what they implement. Thank you.
Members? Okay. Ma'am Jawa?
Thank you, thank you, Chairperson. I do hear the members, and I think the presentations are done to yourselves, obviously as an oversight committee. However, what then happens is, as we briefed last week, I think my colleague acting DG, we did say we have a minister to minister, if I were to say, conversations and discussions on the scope, the value, and the need. And we also include the risk in case there's no, there's no fixing of those areas. So such a presentation will then go to a meeting which is set out between the speaker, the chair, the minister, and the deputy minister. And of course, at that level, the budget sits with DPW. Then the DG is able to actually say, in fact, these estimates or these costs are in line with the market, they can be justified. Then in that meeting, we are able to say, what if we do not invest this much in correcting some of the things that have been found not to be safe in the institution? Because a lot of those things, honorable members, are as a result of long, what can I say, poor maintenance, and also as a result of the old buildings. Some of these buildings are 100 years old plus. So the whole system there and the utilities and the facilities there are really, really old. So I would say, Chairperson, honorable members, that this type of presentation goes to the EA together with the ministry, the minister and deputy minister, and then we discuss the risks. And then, of course, where Public Works has already budgeted, it means they would have attached that to the APP that would have been approved by Parliament. So those are all the things that come into play for the presiding officers to say, yes, we should proceed. But I also want to say, honorable members, if you realize there are certain things, and I agree that there are certain things that we'll have to do, otherwise we'll be in trouble, like completing and making sure that our chefs are safe. Of course, we do have the context of COVID, and that most of the facilities currently are not used at the intensity that they were used before COVID. And those are all the matters that we put into the discussions with the executive authority, and they make a decision informed by all those factors. Thank you so much.
Can I now hand over to you, the department?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think the acting secretary has dealt with some aspects of the project, but I'll ask Tembeka and Zwandile to deal with all the technical responses, the use of the consultants, for example, as well as issues of budget, and how we're dealing with that. Colleagues, if you could please clarify there.
You can come in, Tembeka, consultants.
We still expect the videos to be opened. Fazal doesn't open his video when he speaks.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. In terms of the consultants, for the old assembly, Chairperson, maybe I must start with that one. The presentation that we did, we have used our internal professionals to conduct the assessment. So we had in fact, it's the young professional architect that has been scoping the project, but she's professionally registered. We have a chief construction project manager leading the team. We also have a young professional electrical engineer, a young professional mechanical engineer, but they are being supervised by our registered engineers. And we also had our professionally registered QSs that have been scoping and costing the project. But for this project, we have appointed a similar approach in terms of the disciplines that we need, but we had to go out in the market, because when we can't when we can't execute the projects internally, we then augment the capacity of the department by appointing consultants. So on this project, we have appointed architects that are serving as principal agents. We've appointed a quantity surveying company. We've appointed an electrical engineering company and a mechanical engineering company. And a structural engineer has not yet been appointed. Hence, we utilized the services of our internal structural engineers to design that 90 Plain Street staircase that I was alluding to earlier. In terms of the cost, Chairperson, we had an open tender process. So the consultants were appointed based on how they had the price that they offered to the department. Combined, the cost of the consultant fees at the time was sitting at 1.2 million. To date, the project is at a completed design stage, which is waiting for the final approval from the department on confirmation by the user that we can proceed. So we have paid the consultants about 208,000 to date, because the project is on hold. There has been no further movement in terms of the work that the consultants need to do. Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think I've answered your questions.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Mr. Sazona, you got anything to add? Are we done?
No, I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Yes, Chairperson, thank you very much. I think we're done from our side.
Thank you very much.
I'm still here, Imtiaz.
No, the DM, I mean the officials are done, not the entire thing yet.
Oh, okay.
Over to you, DM.
Thank
Even
you.
though before you come in, DM,
okay.
I think maybe at a later stage, as we progress, the issue of consultancy fee will be broadened. I'm not quite satisfied with the response. Over to you, DM. I just wanted to make that
comment.
That comment to be recorded and to be noted.
Okay. No, thank you, Honorable Chairperson, and your co-chair. For me, it's especially on the last part. I do want to, I'm trying to look for the correct word to use. I do want to what? I don't want to say to beg. What is the other word for that? But to
plead.
yes,
Indulgence,
to plead, yes. I
Indulgence,
want to
yes.
plead.
Indulgence.
to plead with the honorable members that for me, the fact that this project is on hold, and if we look at the equipment, the setups, the machinery being used, the equipment being used is almost archaic. The risk associated with that is the fact that we will at some point find ourselves in a situation where when those very old equipment ceases to function, and it stops at a critical time when the House is in full session, and when we need those that equipment in full use, you find that you would be told there are no parts in the country because this is very old. Those are the risks that we face when we work with equipment like these ones. So I would want to make that plea to say, for me, continuing with this project soonest, especially utilizing the opportunity presented by lockdown and COVID-19, that there are no people physically working in Parliament now. It would be advantageous to Parliament. Remember, we are now vaccinating the nation, expecting a full swing next year. And if we were to do all this work now that it is quiet, it would help us to keep it first within the budget or the estimated cost. But secondly, it will help us. I'm trying to integrate the finance part as well as the part that say, why fix it if it's not broken? Because with the archaic nature of the equipment being used, once it is broken, it will be very difficult to replace at a time when you need it most. So for me, if we could understand and take advantage of COVID for the project to proceed, such that by the time we get on full swing, we don't have to talk about kitchens. It would be, for me, working at our advantage, both financially, but also in terms of the very secure work environment, but also nobody becomes happy to use old machinery when they are modern machineries. It can, I mean, the work environment becomes a bit tedious, and we know it from our own houses. Nobody wants to stay with archaic equipment, much as at times it would be functional, but you would also want, because with new machinery or equipment, there are new benefits of optimal functionality. I thought I needed to just raise that point, but on the issues of the cost and what, I leave that to the officials, because at times we tend to take or to respond on issues that really are not ours. we don't brochure as the executive particularly. And at times when we comment on the issues of the cost, you find officials later on hiding behind that you as the executive authority what had a say in a procurement matter. So I really don't normally answer on issues of procurement. But for me, I'm only looking at what advantages are there, but also understanding that we still have to go and interact with the executive authority of Parliament for the final say. But when the kitchens are not functional and everybody is back at work, that also is going to be another egg on the face of the department, because then once those equipment are not working or the kitchens are not in order, the immediate response is Public Works is not doing. Public Works talked about this long time ago, and Public Works never acted, or they said they are doing it. Up until now, it's not done. So those also are other pressures that the department finds itself, which we really need to find a way to mitigate. Yeah, I thought that I needed to just make that comment. Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks for affording us the opportunity to present to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, DM, and thanks to your team as well for availing themselves for 2 consecutive weeks. We really appreciate your response to the second invitation, though it was a short notice. This is work in progress. We will allow the executive authorities and members of the executive to further deliberate on this matter, and we shall be guided by their responses. On that note, members, I think that we can release the department and deal with the minutes, approval of minutes. Are we still forming a quorum, Cindy?
Chairperson, no.
Thank you, DM. You are excused.
Thank you, honorable members. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, honorable members. Thank you.
Chairperson, with regards to the minutes and the reports, Mr. Singh and Mr. Hadebe have left the meeting to attend to other commitments. So at the moment, we don't form a quorum.
Okay, if that is the case, then I would want to propose that in the next meeting, before we can consider any item, we'll then have to deal with the minutes. We've been postponing them for forever now. It's for the 3rd time that we are postponing them. This morning we were correcting, but we had to give space to other important agenda items. I would want to say that, Cindy, we then schedule the meeting 15 minutes before we can allow for any presentation, so that then we allow that first 15 minutes to deal with the quorum, to deal with the minutes while we're still forming a quorum. So on that note, I want to pause and check with the co-chairperson if there is anything that she would like to say before I officially close the meeting. Co-chair? Oh, it seems we've also lost the co-chairperson. On that note, thank you very much, members, Mem Chawa, and for always being part of this committee. Support staff, Cindy and your team, from Parliament and support staff from different political parties, caucus staff. Thank you very much for the work that you do behind the curtains for this committee to be successful. So far, I think we are doing well as a committee. We've been able to
Thank you, Coach.
Successfully hosting our meetings as scheduled. Thank you very much, members. Enjoy your weekend and please be safe. We are still under lockdown regulations. Follow all the precautionary measures. Goodbye. I love you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, Chair.
Sweet. Sweet chairperson.